Today, we're going to be talking about liquid calories. And the reason that liquid calories are so important is that one, they're easy to drink, they're really easy to digest, they're easy to absorb. Our stomach tends to empty faster when we're using liquid calories, so we feel hungry quicker and we're ready to eat again very quickly or replace it with additional liquid calories. We often replace more nutritive or useful intake with the liquid calories. So we end up drinking a soda when we're thirsty instead of drinking water. They can also be very high glycemic, and we'll talk about glycemic index in another video. But we tend to have things that have caffeine in them as well for liquid calories, and that can actually dehydrate us. So instead of drinking water like we should, we end up taking something that has calories in it and has caffeine, which tends to dehydrate us. That dehydration and that caffeine can do additional damage to the body other than just being dehydrated. And when we think about some things that are considered healthy, like fruit juices, oftentimes these are so processed and heat treated that most of the nutrition in them is completely gone. So they turn into just essentially flavored colored water with a lot of sugar in them. So they become very empty calories. So you really want to avoid processed fruit juices as much as possible. And fruit juice in general should be taken in very small amounts because it's real easy to consume and doesn't have the normal fiber content of the fruit that would help slow the absorption of those sugars that you consume. Now, a common beverage that everybody enjoys is coffee, and most people start out their day with coffee. This is a big problem because most people will take the coffee before they even drink water. They haven't drank water for 8 or so hours while they're sleeping overnight, but then they wake up and they drink something to stimulate them that actually dehydrates them further. This kind of sets the tone for the day and can cause problems. The bigger problem is not just the coffee, because coffee itself has somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 3 calories per cup. It's when you start adding stuff to the coffee. That flavored coffee drink that you have in the morning, other than being relatively expensive and you having to wait in line for it, I know they're yummy, but there's problems with that, and we'll show that in just a minute. Now, God forbid you should put it over ice, because that makes it even worse, because that means you're going to be consuming more calories and you're not going to actually taste the sugar. The if you put it over ice, ice actually dulls your taste of sweet and salty and will make you drink more calories than you would if you had it hot. So iced coffee, bad idea. But really, what happens when you add stuff to your coffee? So like I mentioned, black coffee is about 2 calories per cup. But when you add sugar and milk, you increase that very quickly to 32 calories. You add a tablespoon of half and half, it goes up to 42 calories. You add 2 tablespoons of cream, 106 calories. Now let's get one of those flavored coffees from one of those big stores, and suddenly you're talking about 200 to 400 calories in a drink. And how many of us actually take it by itself? Usually we have it as part of our breakfast. But everybody's got a romanticized idea about drinks. We think about it when it comes to vacation. There's a drink that we think of in our hand. After work, we're thinking about something in particular. At work, we're thinking about our coffee at a certain time of day. And so there's an affiliation in our mind between the drinks, different times of the day, different times of the year, and different events. And we have to be real careful not to fall into the trap of making it a habit rather than a treat every once in a while. Now, here's another example I like to share with people is the olive oil at the restaurant. Everybody's been into one of these restaurants that puts out a plate of olive oil and some fresh bread with a little bit of rosemary and a little salt sprinkled on top, and they'll put some crushed black pepper into that olive oil to give it a little bit more kick. And pretty soon you've gone through a few slices of bread and you've gone through a couple bowls of olive oil, and you didn't even start your meal yet. But what does that really mean? Well, 1 tablespoon of olive oil is 119 calories. Most people, when they sit down to eat a little bowl of olive oil like that, will eat as many as 5 to 8 tablespoons. And you usually eat it with bread, and usually have some salt in there as well on the bread or in the olive oil to flavor it up a little. Well, what does that really mean? Well, that can be as much as 800 to 1200 calories. And that salt that you put in there actually stimulates you to eat more. So not only do you eat all this, but your meal hasn't even come yet. And a lot of people will also have a drink next to their meal. So they'll have a Coke or they'll have some other calorie containing beverage that can stimulate them to eat as well and may add additional calories. And you have that bottomless cup, and the server, in order to get a good tip, is coming back and refilling it over and over and over again. And you may consume as many as 400 calories in liquids in addition to the 800 to 1200 that you had in olive oil. So that night out at the Italian restaurant, and you order that the vegetable platter with a salad, and you think you're doing really well, but you've actually completely sabotaged probably the last 3 days of exercise and the next 3 days of dieting by taking in a tremendous amount of calories. Now, a lot of people have turned recently to shakes and supplements and smoothies as a healthy alternative to meals. Now, the problem with this is some shakes as meal replacements are a good idea when they contain an adequate amount of fiber and balanced nutrition. And this allows the body to feel full when you have that fiber in there and slows the absorption of those nutrients, which means that you stay fuller longer and you don't get peaks in your blood sugar or drops in your blood sugar after it's gone. There's still a problem though. With these liquid calories, they still are a little bit faster digested than a regular meal would be. So you will probably feel hungry faster taking a shake or meal replacement than you would eating real food. The other problem is a lot of people tend to add things to this. Some people will add peanut butter to a shake because of flavoring. Some people will add extra fruit or fruit juice to it. And each of these things adds additional calories. I had a young man who was seeing me for weight loss, and he was taking a breakfast meal replacement shake every day. And when you looked at his total number of calories a day, he should have been losing almost a pound a day based on his activity and his nutrition, and yet he continued to gain weight. And when we started exploring what was he doing, well, he was adding, like I mentioned, peanut butter to his shakes. He was actually sweetening the morning shake with frozen orange juice concentrate. He was scooping it out of the can and dropping it right into the shake and blending it up, and that was adding a tremendous amount of sugar to the shakes. So even with something that we consider relatively healthy, we have to be really careful not to transform it into something that is unhealthy. And like I mentioned, most of the time when we take some of these beverages, people go out in the morning and get their coffee. They usually grab a muffin or a bagel or something on the side. And these are high glycemic or high sugar releasing foods that cause you to eat more and store more fat. The same thing happens in the after work or in the holidays or watching that football game. People grab a Coke, people grab a beer, and what do they have next to it? They're going to have some chips, they're going to have some cookies, they're going to have some nuts or some pretzels, and each of these things, once they're added to a liquid form, they become easier to digest and absorb. So the bottom line is you should be drinking more water. When you're thirsty, drink water. The first thing in the morning when you wake up is 2 glasses of water. That has been shown to make a tremendous amount of difference in not only the way that you start your day and the mindset that you have during the day, but also in reducing your blood pressure and improving your health overall. You want to eat food when you can and not take liquid calories, beverages to replace your food. You want to avoid comfort drinks. Yes, there are times where we want to have that. We want to have that hot coffee. We want to have that spiced hot cider. We want to have that beer or whatever else that you like. But we don't want to make it a habit because it's the habits that continue to add calories on a regular basis, and that's problematic. You also want to control what's added to your drinks and your coffee. When you allow somebody else to prepare your coffee, they may put in a tremendous amount of sugar. And many of those coffee drinks will have more sugar in them than even like a Coke or another soft drink. and you want to avoid pairing sugary beverages with foods. When you pair those sugary beverages with foods even healthy foods can become relatively unhealthy with that added sugar in there and with the extra fluid. So hopefully that shed a little bit of light for you on the problem with liquid calories, and we're going to continue our series on the 5 food-related risk factors for obesity, and we'll join you at the next video. Bye-bye.